In this video, we delve into a thought-provoking exploration of geopolitical strategies and military vulnerabilities. Join us as we analyze and discuss the top 10 countries that are considered relatively easier to invade. This discussion is purely based on historical events, geopolitical factors, and military considerations. Note that this content is for informative purposes only, and no endorsement of aggression is intended. Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, a country in Africa that also made our ranking of the nations that are easiest to invade, has one of the world's weakest military and a very unstable political system. Zimbabwe's agricultural and mining industries contributed to the expansion of the country's economy before independence. However, internal corruption, conflict, unemployment, and subpar industrial management are some of Zimbabwe's present problems. An in-depth examination of the nation sheds light on the background of poverty in Zimbabwe. The mining industry of the nation is ineffective. Its gold output fell by 30% in the first quarter of 2021. The sector is harmed by illegal gold mining, but Zimbabwe's loose mining licensing laws also permit foreign businesses to mine minerals for years at a time at low rates, leaving little incentive to increase mineral production. Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau are list because of its low GDP and unstable political environment. The army had launched 12 coups in the past 40 years, of which 3 have all been successful. One of the things preventing the country's progress has been this unpredictability. However, the current environment has never been more favorable for advancing this issue. The military lost its credibility as a direct consequence of the coup in 2012, and the 2014 elections introduced to power leaders who are less reliant on the military due to their strong electoral validity and the assistance of international partners, and eventually, the latter is less polarized than they used to be in 2012. Central African Republic. Its military is also not fully adequate. Any presentation of the Central African Republic must start by pointing out the similarities between the nation Afghanistan and Mali. The 5,200-kilometer-long border of the Central African Republic is mainly unprotected. With a per capita GDP considerably under $1,000. Central African Republic is a relatively underdeveloped nation. 4 conflict-ridden, unstable countries that differ in violence share borders with the Central African Republic. The long border of the Central African Republic has not proven to be a barrier to the flow of arms and combatants from nearby nations. Criminal gangs from nearby nations as well as farther away, like Nigeria as well as Uganda, have terrified the people of the Central African Republic. Central African Republic has had 7 presidents since gaining independence in 1960 through the departure of President Jitodia, 4 of whom held office for more than 10 years. Comoros. The Comoros Islands is a nation located on the Indian Ocean. With little economic diversification, Comoros has a weak economy. Agriculture, remittances, and foreign assistance are the main economic drivers of the nation. Its development is hampered by the lack of economic and resource prospects. Political unrest and numerous changes in the country's top leadership have plagued Comoros. Governance and general development have been hampered by this volatility, which has made it difficult to adopt consistent policies. Comoros is divided physically across 3 main islands, which makes it difficult to get basic services and to communicate. The country faces additional development difficulties as a result of this geographic limitation. Somalia. Somalia has been dealing with a number of challenges as a country. It is the weakest in terms of military. The lack of an effective government, if necessary, would significantly hamper any defensive effort. Militia organizations have traditionally been a distinctive feature of Somalia's conflict environment since the country's ongoing civil war began 30 years ago. Communities develop or join such groups in response to times of insecurity, vulnerability, and organizations Somalia's state-aligned militia organizations, on the other hand, are a key source of the country's constant foreign influence, deadly warfare, and severe rule. Afghanistan. There has been conflicting in Afghanistan for a very long time. This is solely due to its unstable political structure, which also leaves it with one of the world's most underdeveloped militaries. While gaining control of Afghanistan may not be difficult, as the British, Soviets, and Americans have all discovered, doing so demands a different strategy. Afghanistan is one of the world's poorest countries. Afghanistan is plagued by poverty in both its rural and urban areas. Additionally, it has been discovered that hardship in Afghanistan is primarily confined to rural areas. 4 out of 5 poor persons, on average, reside in rural areas. Many young children and babies are underdeveloped or malnourished in these rural areas, and many of them pass away every year because their families are unable to buy nourishing food. Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau are listed because of its low GDP and unstable political environment. The army had launched 12 coups in the past 40 years, of which 3 have all been successful. One of the things preventing the country's progress has been this unpredictability. However, the current environment has never been more favorable for advancing this issue. The military lost its credibility as a direct consequence of the coup in 2012, and the 2014 elections introduced to power leaders who are less reliant on the military due to their strong electoral validity and the assistance of international partners, and eventually, the latter is less polarized than they used to be in 2012. Libya. The political climate in Libya is also not the best. Since Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, the country's longtime leader, was overthrown by NATO-backed forces in October 2011, Libya has been engulfed in rebellion. The oil-rich nation formerly boasted one of the best living standards in Africa, with free medical care and access to education, and was a major departure point for a number of the thousands of migrants traveling to Europe. As negotiations to establish a post-Gaddafi Libya fail, the calm that contributed to its success has been ruptured, and even the capital, Tripoli, is now the scene of conflict between rival groups. Republic of Congo. The Republic of Congo is plagued by 2 major problems: a poor political structure and one of the world's weakest armed forces. The ongoing carnage in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is the result of a massive refugee crisis and the consequences from the 1994 Rwandan genocide. As Hutu genocide survivors fled to the eastern DRC and organized military formations, opposing Tutsi and other predatory rebel organizations developed. War broke out because the Congolese government was unable of controlling and defeating the various armed factions, some of which pose severe threats to people in neighboring countries. Liberia. Liberia's political stability and rate of economic growth are both weak. Due in major part to the First Liberian Civil War, Liberia's economy is relatively underdeveloped, having a gross domestic product of only $3.222 billion as of 2019, 1989 to 1996. According to the United Nations, Liberia ranks among the world's most deprived and least developed nations. Liberia has abundant resources. They have access to resources such as forest areas, water, minerals, and a climate that is appropriate for farming but lacks stability, infrastructural facilities, and especially human resources. Liberia's economy frequently serves as a benchmark for sub-Saharan African economies. The vast majority of people depend on growing crops, and the bulk of the country's exports consist of raw materials like iron ore as well as rubber. South Sudan. South Sudan leads the list of countries with the worst political systems. South Sudan has been unable to unite the country's military organizations into a coherent force with the primary goal of ensuring national security. The challenge of restructuring the security sector has been made difficult by a militarized political culture that elevates the likelihood of violent confrontation. The armed forces have grown into powerful instruments that are more concerned with individuals than with the state. Instead of being associated with the government or the major political parties, the armed forces have grown into a formidable instrument. If these organizations were unified under a single national framework, opposing generals' leverage would be reduced. The consequences of an invasion might vary depending on the aims of both the invaders and the defenders, the success of the invading and defending forces, and the extent to which the conflicting parties have reached an agreement. The most usual outcome is territory loss, which is frequently accompanied by a change in leadership and frequently results in the losing party losing complete control of the nation.